If you're watching this channel, it's because you don't enjoy watching the world squander what Christendom built, and you want to do your part. Today I'd like to mention one means of doing just that: email made by and for Catholics. Check out Fidei Email, that's FIDEI.email, built for Catholic individuals, families, organizations, and groups. They're private, secure, and of course Catholic. God bless. Francis is beloved by the secular world. Those who are adversaries of the Church seem to love him. Those without the faith seem to love him as well. Worse than that, he's loved by the formal manifest heretics who oppose the infallible oral teachings of the Church. Earlier this week, Francis met with two figures who publicly reject what the Church has to say on issues of morality, one of which you've probably heard about, but both are worth going over, at least in brief today, because Francis has a clear history of speaking to heretics and those adversaries of the Church who oppose everything Christ and the Church stands for. He meets with them not to call them to conversion, which should be what's happening, but instead he does so to go out to the peripheries and have a pleasant conversation with them. Not with the aim of conversion, he said as much, but just to talk. Now, why would he do that? There's no purpose in really doing anything like that, but here we are. So let's talk about the story today. The first of these stories is the one you've probably heard about already. Francis met with Whoopi Goldberg, the actress who made 2 movies mocking nuns back in the 1990s, with a third film apparently on the way because Hollywood is completely out of ideas for anything new. So for whatever reason, Francis was able to make time to meet with her despite the ongoing Synod of Sin, which takes place literally all day, every day in the Vatican right now. Headline from Vatican News: the NPR of the Vatican. Whoopi Goldberg: I've waited years to thank Pope Francis for his message. Actress and activist Whoopi Goldberg discussed the importance of fighting the good fight in whatever way possible as we strive to respond to Pope Francis's appeal for hope, love, and inclusion to heal our broken world. You know how sometimes when certain kinds of public figures endorse what you're saying, it should cast doubt on whatever it is you're doing? That should be the case here. Whoopi Goldberg isn't exactly a paragon of Catholicity, isn't even a Catholic as far as I know, and yet is known for mocking nuns in a series of really tasteless movies from the 1990s, which I guess makes her an expert in these things. But here's the takeaway from the article. She wants to gift Francis bees because bees are in trouble. She loves his Laudato Si and Laudate Deum documents, and wants more of that because apparently the gospel of salvation should be put aside for the secular issue of the moment. But here's the core of the article. Quote, Whoopi Goldberg says she has waited almost 11 years to meet with the Pope. On Thursday, 12th of October, she finally managed to do so and uttered the words she's been holding onto for so long. Simple words. Thank you. The drama told by the photos displayed in the Holy See press office is one that Pope Francis has dedicated so much of his pontificate to the lack of love and the need for it, and the importance of fighting for inclusion and preservation. Reiterating the fact that she loves Pope Francis's message, Whoopi said she believes that a leader must give voice to his or her message just as he does. He says we have to love everybody, and we must remember that it is not up to us to forgive, but up to God, and that the rest, she adds, quite frankly, is none of your business. Quote. That's saying sin is not up to your business. Anyway, if this person were thanking me for the work I was doing, I'd rethink whatever it was that I was doing. But she loves his work, and she's not the only one either. See, the big problem from the past week is that Francis met with notorious public heretic Sister Janine Gramick, co-founder of New Ways Ministry, which has been working to get the Church to change its teachings on the James Martin sin for several decades now, going back to the 70s. Francis met with her in a total repudiation of what both John Paul II and Benedict XVI had to say about Gramick and New Ways Ministry. If you're not familiar with the formal condemnation of that group, here's an excerpt from the formal condemnation that was issued by the Vatican back in better days, shared by a Catholic journalist on Twitter just a couple days ago. Quote, given the failure of the repeated attempts of the Church's legitimate authorities to resolve the problems presented by the writings and pastoral activities of the two authors,
The Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith is obliged to declare for the good of the Catholic faithful that the positions advanced by Sister Janine Gramick and Father Robert Nugent regarding the intrinsic evil of James Martin activities and the objective disorder of the James Martin inclination are doctrinally unacceptable because they do not faithfully convey the clear and constant teaching of the Catholic Church in this area. Father Nugent and Sister Gramick have often stated that they seek, in keeping with the Church's teaching, to treat such persons, quote, with respect, compassion, and sensitivity. However, the promotion of errors and ambiguities is not consistent with a Christian attitude of true respect and compassion. Persons who are struggling with James Martin inclinations, no less than any others, have the right to receive the authentic teaching of the Church from those who minister to them. The ambiguities and errors of the approach of Father Nugent and Sister Gramick have caused confusion among the Catholic people and have harmed the community of the Church. For these reasons, Sister Janine Gramick, SSND, and Father Robert Nugent, SDS, are permanently prohibited from any pastoral work involving James Martin types and are ineligible for an undetermined period for any office in their respective religious institutes. Conclusion of the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith's notification regarding Sister Janine Gramick and Father Robert Nugent. Signed by Cardinal Joseph Ratzinger, May 31st, 1999, and approved by Pope John Paul II, May 14th, 1999.
End quote. As you can plainly see, the Holy Father invoked his authority in those days and forbade Sister Janine Gramick from continuing in her evil work. The inclination in question was, in fact, defined as evil. Yet Sister Janine Gramick persisted. She didn't care. She was never formally excommunicated for that, a punishment seemingly reserved even in those days for traditionalist bishops and priests. And now Francis meets with her publicly again, as you can see from this picture. He has met with Pastor Jimmy Martin of the Jesuit Church numerous times, and even gave him a post in the Vatican's communications office. This meeting between Francis and Gramick did cause quite a lot of a hubbub online, as you might expect. Pastor Jimmy Martin shared this on Twitter, quote, "Congratulations to Sister Janine Gramick, co-founder of New Ways Ministry, who was received by Pope Francis this afternoon along with her colleagues. A significant step forward in the Church's outreach to these Catholics." End quote. Now, why would he call it a significant step forward? Because this meeting represents a symbolic repudiation of the John Paul II and Ratzinger statement that I read to you a moment ago, even if Francis doesn't even remember that when he decided to meet with her. Another user celebrated this meeting in this way, quote, "Sister Janine, co-founder of New Ways Ministry, brought greetings to the Pope from U.S. James Martin-style Catholics. She thanked him for his openness to blessing James Martin pairings. Pope Francis called her a quote-unquote valiant woman, and congratulated her on 50 years of this ministry. Deo gratias." End quote. I think you get the idea of the support that's out there among the people in the pews who have rejected the Church's moral authority on issues related to the bedroom. And as you might expect, the heretical National Catholic Reporter had a field day with this story. So, headline from that outlet, exclusive, Janine Gramick, unnatural advocate, reveals details of meeting with Pope Francis. What she has to say here will surprise exactly no one. It will make absolutely clear that she believes the Church is and has always been wrong on this issue, and that she thinks she knows what God thinks on moral matters better than the Church has until this point in history. Quote, "In an exclusive interview with the National Catholic Reporter some 18 hours after the papal encounter, Gramick said Francis, quote, has a warmth and wanting to embrace everyone, not just James Martin types, but those who have been shunned by society and the Church. I think Pope Francis is trying to get us to move forward, to open our eyes and look to the future and to the changes in the world," she said. Gramick, who spoke to National Catholic Reporter for a special episode of the Vatican Briefing podcast, also revealed some of the small details of what it is like to meet the Pope at his residence, the Vatican's Casa Santa Marta. She said that when she and 3 staffers from her organization, New Ways Ministry, arrived for the meeting, they were ushered to several chairs arranged in a circle. I pulled my chair closer to his because
I didn't like that arrangement, Gramick said, chuckling lightly. It was a fine arrangement, but not close enough. And then we just began to chat. It was really quite homey. The sister, who has struck up a correspondence with Francis in recent years, said seeing him in person for the first time, quote, was like two people who have been pen pals across the ocean, who have never met each other and then meet. It's just exciting. It's moving. It's being with a friend, she said. Asked how she understood the significance of her now meeting with Francis, Gramick said, I explain it really as the working of the Holy Spirit. I attribute this to the work of the Spirit in electing someone like Pope Francis, who really is a man of God, she said. End quote. For the past 2 or 3 years, every summer during the month of June, when the world celebrates one of the 7 deadly sins, the queen of all the sins, Francis sends a handwritten letter to Pastor Jimmy Martin of the Jesuit Church, praising him for the brave and courageous work he's doing, and telling him to keep it up. Pastor Jimmy doesn't obviously hesitate to publish the letter on his various websites, which then sends the clear message to his opponents that he has the backing of the man the world thinks is the Pope behind him. Elsewhere, Sister Gramick had this to say, quote, if it hadn't been Pope Francis who had been elected, this wouldn't have happened. God is saying we need to get back to the spirit of Vatican II. End quote. I absolutely love how the heretics admit that it's a spirit of Vatican II which allows them to push such blatant and monstrous rejection of Catholic morality onto the Church. They never say what the spirit of Vatican II is precisely. It's a revolutionary spirit that pushes ambiguity, confusion, and chaos on the Church, which are signs that the spirit in question is a diabolical spirit and not something from God, since God doesn't work with ambiguity, chaos, or confusion. Those are not the hallmarks of God, those are the hallmarks of the devil. But Francis disagrees because the God he serves is a God of surprises, and ambiguity and confusion are part and parcel of the work of the one that Francis serves. Now, what do you think of all this? Do you see how Whoopi Goldberg and Sister Janine Gramick meeting with Francis separately are linked? Do you find it odd that Francis has time to meet with these two during the Synod of Sin, while not having the time to respond to the clarified and simplified dubia submitted by Cardinals Burke, Mueller, Zen, and the rest? Let me know in the comments, please, and like and subscribe if you haven't. It does help. So to sharing this on social media, that helps too. As always, pray for the Church. I'm Anthony Stine. Ave Maria.